Karolevitz and Phyllis wrote this book, and it's been, it was published in 1970, first edition. It's been out of print for quite a long time, so we just got it reprinted with updated images and things like that. It's really a beautiful book. So we're very excited. Tonight we're launching it. And so Phyllis Karolevitz is just going to tell us a bit about what went into doing this book with her husband, Robert. So Phyllis Karolevitz.
Well, I'll never be able to speak like Bob did, but bear with me. It's so good to be here, and I just absolutely am thrilled about the new book. It's beautiful. And I know Bob is here with us in spirit, and I just wish he could have been here, but that's not the way it is. So, but in case some of you are not aware of how the title came about, the painting of a woman and her two daughters is not known by the title the artist originally gave it. This My Garden is what Harvey Dunn originally gave it, and he insisted that it be called that. Somehow the words were taken from Matthew 21, for where your heart is, there will your heart will be also. The prairie is my garden, and from all of that, Bob chose to call the first book, Where Your Heart Is.
Can you speak louder?
Louder?
Sorry.
Tonight I would like to take a few moments to tell you about the research we took for the first book and to learn as much as we could about Harvey Dunn and where he developed his tremendous talent. Actually, we knew quite a lot about Harvey Dunn before Where Your Heart Is came about. Earlier, Bob had written The Prairie is My Garden, but we knew there was more to be learned about this man. That book was a paperback, and the powers that be back east in the art world expressed interest in doing a more extensive hardcover book of Harvey Dunn's life and his work. So we packed and headed east. It was, wait a minute. A few days later, we arrived at October Farm in upstate New York, near the city of Westport. We had an appointment there with Robert Dunn, Harvey's son, who lived on a 290-acre farm. He didn't seem too excited about seeing us at first, and the interview started really slow. In the meantime, Bob's wife joined us, and pretty soon the four of us were all on the floor, looking at pictures and having lunch. And then we finally had a drink before lunch, and it was really a very nice time. Bob shared an interesting tidbit about his dad, who dabbled briefly in sculpting. He took us out to his barn where he had stashed away a sculpture that was done by his dad of his mother. It wasn't very good, and we both felt it was a good thing Harvey continued to paint. But no wonder he kept it in the barn. The next day we arrived in New York City for a lunch date with Tula, Harvey's widow. Her name was really Johanne Louise Krebs, daughter of a Danish immigrant and whom had achieved considerable success as founder of a paint company which later became DuPont. Tula was a Danish term for endearment, which Harvey Dunn always called her. Tula lived in an apartment in Manhattan, complete with servants and a maid who served us lunch, which included shad. Well, I had never eaten or heard of shad before. This prairie kid, a long time ago, had never even known what it was, let alone eat it, but it was good. Tula was very gracious to us and seemed to enjoy the meeting and in no hurry to have it end. She spoke lovingly of Harvey, and I'm sure it was a wonderful marriage. However, his life growing up in South Dakota, spending the first year living in what amounted to a claim shanty, was entirely foreign to her. She made at least one trip back to South Dakota after they were married, but it was hard for her to grasp the barrenness here, and to her what a lonely life it must have been for him. She was very happy to return to the big city, and Harvey obviously respected that. We felt our interview with Tula was both successful and so enjoyable. The next day we lunched at the Society of Illustrators with several of Harvey Dunn's students, who turned out to be a great bunch of guys. Turns out they hadn't seen each other in quite a while, so there were stories to be told about their love and respect for the old man, as they lovingly called Harvey. Later that same day, we visited a nursing home to see another student. His name was Harold von Schmidt, and I see his picture in his image. I have to learn to say image. He was lying there in the nursing home bed, and he was so excited to talk about Harvey Dunn, his beloved teacher. I have to admit, I shed some tears on the way out of his room, knowing full well I would never see him again. Seeing another student named Bill Agnew was a little easier. He had a lot of Harvey Dunn memorabilia, which included his harmonica. Never did hear about Harvey playing a harmonica, but he had it. In Tenafly, New Jersey, we met librarian Virginia Mosley at the high school. She was ever so helpful and showed us numerous Harvey Dunn images hanging in that school. We viewed two more when we visited West Point. We met Harvey Dunn's daughter Louise and her husband John Rutherford in Boston. They too were very gracious and welcoming. They were very involved in the Christian Science Church headquarters there in Boston, and also of which Tula was very involved. We went to Chad's Ford in the Brandywine Valley in Pennsylvania. Harvey Dunn studied there under the tutelage of noted painter Howard Pyle. In Washington, D.C., we went to the National Archives, which housed most of Harvey Dunn's World War I paintings that he did as one of 8 artists chosen to portray the combat activities of the American Revolutionary War in World War I. Well, there might be a page missing. A lasting memory of the Harvey Dunn story must include our trip to Oklahoma City to the National Western Heritage Center, where Bob was honored to receive the Outstanding Western Art Book for 1970. He received a beautiful bronze statue of a cowboy wrangler astride his horse. It was cast in Italy, and it maintains a prominent place in my home. The ceremony was almost Oscar-like, and the presentation with well-known Hollywood actors Walter Brennan and Joel McCrea doing the honors. Does anybody out there remember those two guys? He didn't hop along as he came up there, but he was there. And we actually had breakfast with him the next morning. I am so happy I could be here, almost all of you, and to see all of you and some of Harvey Dunn's work. I love this new edition of Where Your Heart Is. Bob would have been so proud. As he once wrote, the more he researched the Harvey Dunn story, the more of a disciple he became. Thank you.